Okay, microphone's on. We got our 2003 6.0 back from the machine shop. I went ahead and started to assemble it here just to get that stuff out of the way. So what I did is I installed the cam bearings, got the crankshaft in, the main bearings, um, crankshafts in, bed plate is torqued down, bed plate seals. I don't use any. I mean, I know there are some guys that use the gray silicone on the bed plate seal. I don't do that. I just use it on the ends when I put them in, and then of course when you put your rear cover on, your front cover on at your T joints here, you want to put some on there too, so that it seals that up. But anyway, you'll notice the hub is missing off of this one. Sure makes it easier to line the timing marks up when you drop the crank in without the tool. It came over. They had it torn down to the short block basically, and that was already off of there. So I don't know. I've seen them off. I've put them back on. Doesn't seem to be a problem. The only thing of it is that you've got a dowel pin on that hub that goes on here, and it's going to line up with your timing mark. Just make sure that's on there. The bolt shoulders on the bolts hold that thing. They're going to align that thing pretty good. So what I usually do is get it up there where I want it, put the bolts in it before I pound it on, because it's more or less a kind of a light interference fit on the end of the crankshaft here, and then run my bolts in a little bit, snug them up, and then take that blow hammer and kind of pound it on there, and then torque your bolts. I don't remember the torque off the top of my head. I think it was like 79 or 69 to 70 some pounds. I'll have to go look it up. But anyway, so what we're going to do next, we're going to throw this thing up on the engine stand. It's this is the way I've always done it. I got a build table here that I use, but we're going to throw it on the engine stand because one thing that I didn't do yet, and I usually do that first, but I was excited. We're going to go ahead and check our ring gaps, and we've got we're using them all fleet grade pistons. These things are just a work of art. They're just beautiful. Those are really nice pistons. So I've got them numbered for each cylinder. We're going to check each cylinder, put those rings on that piston, hang them on the rods. We got the rods all ready to go. Of course, we got our bearings. We took our measurements, so we don't have to stop. We can just slam them in the proper hole, torque the rod caps down, and mark them. And we're ready to put the windage tray or the upper oil pan on, and then the pickup tube and the actual oil pan on there. I do use blue Loctite on all the bolts here. The bolts that hold the windage tray down, and the lower oil pan, and especially the oil pump pickup. You know, you I've seen these loose, and I don't know if somebody's had the pan off or they just, like, you can see the lines in here. It kind of vibrates on there. I mean, that's going to seal. I've never seen a real problem with that, but you know, put some Loctite on the bolts, torque them down. They torque down to like 120 inch pounds or 10 foot pounds. All these little bolts on here, and shouldn't have a problem with it. I never do. We're starting out with fresh gaskets. Down the road in a few years, yeah, it's going to be leaking oil because I mean, they just leak oil. But your T joints here, you want to make sure you use your gray silicone on these. I've never used it on the bed plate rail here. Some guys do. I just don't. Never even considered it. Clean and dry. Put that seal in your bed plate, and then once you get this thing torqued on, I always put a little dab on the ends here when I put them on. I don't know if it does any good or not, but it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy, so I do it. So we're going to gap the piston rings, hang them on the, install them on the pistons, put the pistons on the rods. I've got the rods, they're all numbered, so got them all numbered for each cylinder. One thing I do like to do, I don't do it with a glove on, but I always take the rings, and, I'll run my thumb all the way around and make sure, especially on the oil ring, uh, make sure we don't have any burrs or anything funky going on there, because once you put them in, if you've got something going on, especially with like on the oil ring, that's the most likely one to have an issue. You're going to you're going to be taking the finish right out of that spot on your cylinder. So be really careful with them. Uh, these pistons, they're marked cam side. You can see there the long end of the rod. You can see these rods are angled down here. This is the long end. This goes on the cam side, so it'll be pretty obvious if you install them backwards. The engine, it won't rotate. So, but anyway, just to save yourself some hassle there. Not saying I've ever done that, but you know, it can happen. So anyway, let's get this thing up on the engine stand. I didn't show all this because, like I said, I was excited, but as you can see, it's put together. I always mark the bolts when I torque them because, phone rings or whatever. You want them, don't stop. Just keep going. Do your torque pattern and don't stop. And then I mark them, and then that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy too. I know I'm here by myself a lot of the time, but, still, I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night and go, Jesus, did I, so now I know that I did it. So anyway, uh, it's a good idea to do that, I think, because, even the best of us, we can screw up. I've actually screwed up before, but, so anyway, let's get this thing up on the engine stand. We'll check the ring end gap and, install the rings on the pistons and then install the rods on the pistons. And we'll get them in there. We're ready to go. Got our bearings in there already, and once we get that done, we'll put the pans on it, and we'll roll it over. We got we got a little bit of math and calculations to do and checking to do on the piston to valve clearance, and then this aftermarket camshaft in this. So I'm sure the dwell time on the valves is longer, so that piston's you know going to be chasing that valve maybe even closer. I just want to know what the clearance is. It's not that big a deal to do that. Also, the push rod length. We're going to try to hit. We've got a set of Johnson lifters, and we're going to try to hit their the spec that they want, rather than having 120 or 100 to 120 thousandths of lifter preload. We're going to see if we can hit their spec, which I think was 35 plus or minus 5. So, I mean, a little more than that. I don't know. I didn't measure the plunger depth on those. I know the plunger depth on the stock lifter is quite a bit, but you're still getting close to the end, with those longer push rods in there on the when they originally came out with the 39 or 40 thousandths longer push rods. So, anyway, let's uh, have me quit blathering and get our button gear and get this done.